Here's my first audience member. There's 2 more on call. There we go. Okay. Unmasking narcissistic personality disorder, beyond the stereotype. Imagine a person who walks into a room and instantly commands all the attention. They're charming, confident, and seemingly unstoppable, but beneath that dazzling exterior lies a complex psychological landscape that's far more fragile than what it appears. What if I told you that the most narcissistic person you know might actually be the most insecure? As a student deeply interested in psychological research, next slide, I've spent considerable time studying the complexities of narcissistic personality disorder. Recent groundbreaking research has revealed that this condition is far more nuanced than popular culture suggests. Research unveiling the hidden complexity. In their landmark 2015 publication in the American Journal of Psychiatry, Callagore and colleagues highlight why understanding NPD matters. It profoundly impacts interpersonal relationships and mental health diagnosis. Jordan and colleagues' 2019 research in Self and Identity emphasizes the importance of understanding the many faces of narcissism to develop more empathetic psychological approaches. Next. Today I will examine 3 crucial aspects of narcissistic personality disorder: the complex diagnostic landscape of NPD, revealing the surprising subtypes of narcissism, psychological mechanisms underlying narcissistic behaviors. With modern diagnostic approaches, a recent 2024 study by Day and colleagues in the Journal of Clinical Psychology explains that modern diagnostic systems now use a dimensional approach to understanding personality disorders. And with Weinberg and Ronningstan's 2022 research in Focus Critically, examines how this approach differs from traditional categorical diagnosis, allowing for a more nuanced understanding of personality disorders. Next slide. Core diagnostic criteria. The DSM-5 alternative model, as outlined by Callagore and colleagues in 2015, identifies a specific diagnostic profile of NPD, requiring an individual to demonstrate a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, an intense need for admiration, a significant lack of empathy, and as they explain in the American Journal of Psychiatry, these traits must be persistent and create significant impairment in personal and social functioning. Next slide. Now, with diagnostic challenges, Callagore's research emphasizes that NPD must be carefully distinguished from other personality and mood disorders, as significant overlap can occur. The complexity is further illustrated by the high rate of comorbidity, making precise diagnosis a challenging clinical task. While the diagnostic criteria provide a framework, the reality of narcissism is far more nuanced than simple self-centeredness. Let's explore these surprising subtypes that reveal the disorder's complexity. Next slide. The surprising subtypes of narcissism demonstrate the complexity of human psychological adaptation. With grandiose narcissism, Jordan and colleagues' 2019 study in Self and Identity describes grandiose narcissism as characterized by bold, self-aggrandizing behaviors. And these individuals are often driven by status-seeking behaviors and intense social comparisons. Next slide. With vulnerable narcissism, the same research highlights a contrasting subtype marked by underlying insecurity and emotional fragility, with Day and colleagues' 2024 research further exploring the nuanced trait profiles of narcissistic vulnerability. Next slide. With the intersection of subtypes, Stranieri and colleagues' 2021 research in Psychiatria Danabina explores the pathological dimensions of narcissism. Their work suggests that narcissistic traits exist on a complex spectrum, challenging simplistic understandings of the disorder. And understanding these subtypes reveals that narcissism is not a simple personality trait, but a complex psychological mechanism deeply rooted in emotional regulation and self-perception. Next slide. The psychological mechanisms of narcissistic personality disorder unveil the complex nature of human emotional adaptation. With self-esteem dysregulation, Dr. Ramani Durvasula provocatively notes in her APA podcast that narcissists are often the most insecure people in the room. And with Weinberg and Ronningstan's 2022 study explaining that grandiosity often functions as a defensive mechanism, masking deep-seated feelings of inadequacy. Next slide. The relationships, there's a lot of barriers to connection with relationships, with narcissists often engaging in superficial interactions that serve their self-esteem, with Jordan and colleagues highlighting the complex ways that narcissistic traits manifest in interpersonal contexts. Next slide. There's also a lot of developmental influences, with Strainieri and colleagues' 2021 research exploring how narcissistic traits can develop, often rooted in complex family dynamics. And the research suggests that these traits are not simply a choice, but a complex psychological adaptation. As we've explored the intricate layers of narcissistic personality disorder, from its diagnostic complexities to its profound psychological mechanisms, we're left with crucial understanding. NPD is not a simple label, but a deeply human experience of psychological struggle. From the complex diagnostic criteria to the surprising subtypes and underlying psychological mechanisms of narcissistic personality disorder, it represents a far more nuanced condition than popular culture suggests. By approaching NPD with compassion, scientific understanding, and nuance, we can begin to break down harmful interpersonal patterns and foster more meaningful human connections. Next slide. Thank you.
How long was that?